July 11, 2023. This is the S&P 500 E-Futures Mini on the NinjaTrader 8 platform on the 2000 tick chart. This is what the chart looked like today. You can look down at the descriptions below. You can see where I marked and timestamped where I thought I saw setups as well as where I took my trades. Overall, it looked like there was a very slow move upwards, like a very slow rally. But for the most part, it looked like it was kind of in a wide trading range. I suppose if you looked, you could have maybe said there was a trading range or trading channel here, but it looked like it wouldn't have really helped all that much for taking trades off of. I suppose you could say something like that, but I'm not going to bother. It looked like it was just pretty choppy, kind of a trading range most of the day or half of the day. Then it broke out, kind of fought another trading range, and then it had a really strong rally about the last hour. There were no pieces of economic data to really move the markets today, so it was just an interesting, kind of a choppy day. I only took one trade, and there were a few others, these asterisk ones that I thought were probably pretty good setups to have taken, but I didn't manage to take them. And so I'm going to go into the trades right now. Those are pre-market highs and lows that I marked in this gray channel that you can see. I'm going to trade the pre-market. So the market opens, and at first I thought we were just going to be in a trading range because it looks like it's showing characteristics of a trading range, but you don't really know that yet. It could, bust out and break through. So I'm just sitting tight right now. You do have a new high, first entry long, potentially a second entry long. You have a second entry long confirmed here, but this is on the very first 17 seconds of the regular trading hour. So I'm not ready to just jump in yet, unless it's like super bulletproof. This signal bar has been better. It was just showing a really strong trend up. All things have to align for me to take a very quick trade right at the open, simply because it can get very choppy and whipsaw right when the market opens because there's a lot of orders placed that might execute right on regular hours. Turns out, depending on where you were trying to scalp out, it looks like you wouldn't have gotten a good point out of it. I think you would have gotten stopped out if you kept your stop loss down here. Let's continue moving up. It confirms the top of this trading range now. Now it breaks out. I saw this as a potential failed breakout, but there's no setup. Prices continue moving down. I draw this shortened channel coming down. Bounces. There's no real setup. You do have a first entry short here. You have a second entry short, but this is not a good signal bar. You have first entry long here, then it makes a double top. They kind of reset. It's in this very, very congested trading range now, and I don't see any good setups. Plus, the trading range itself is only about 2.5 points. So to try to scalp out, taking a point, you'd have to be pretty sure you're taking the bottom or shorting from the very top. Well, I just didn't want to deal with any of that, so I just kind of waited. Let's continue to move. I first draw this orange trend channel going down, and it breaks out, and I'm thinking it's going to test a new low, and it does, but it keeps going. So then I experimented and tried potentially this bigger green channel going down. So far, it doesn't confirm, and it doesn't really confirm a third time, so it wasn't really a channel worth trading or taking any setups off of. It was very congested here. It looks like there was some kind of resistance right at this line. EMA is keeping prices below. Comes up, it breaks above the EMA for the first time, and now it trends up. So this is a very strong bullish move, but I don't take a trade because there's no real setup. It breaks out and comes up, tests the high, so you think the uptrend has potentially played out. Drops around, and it confirms, or at least it touches the top of this big yellow trading range. Third, or actually a second time. Third if you counted this, but I usually only count this as one touch, two touch, and one touch down here, two touch down here. You could argue for a third touch here, one touch, two touch. Prices continue chopping, and I do see a setup here. There's a second entry long, first high, new high, first entry long, comes down, makes a second entry long here, except this isn't a good signal bar, so I wouldn't have been ready to have my entry trade here, and I wanted a confirmation higher low. Prices continue moving down. It breaks below and comes up. So now you do get the confirmation higher low of the second entry long, but it's too far from the EMA. On top of that, you're running right into this potential top of this trading range, so you can be buying at the high. You're not really sure it's going to break out and maybe make a move up, but I leave it alone. Turns out if you did take this trade one tick above, you would have gotten filled, which would have been nice, and then you very likely would have gotten a scalp out. Prices continue chopping. I see a second entry long that's kind of hidden. So it's pretty interesting. I didn't catch this in real time, but after the move was made, I recognized it, and unfortunately, I didn't recognize it fast enough. So here's a new high, first entry long. This candle forms the second entry long because it actually breaks below this big, well, this candle here, this red one, it's pretty bearish, breaks down below, comes up and closes above it. So you could actually see it as one leg down, push up, and then all within the life of this candle, it broke down and went right back up again. So it's a hidden second entry long. And I thought that's actually a pretty good trade because it also bounced off the EMA, which is this blue line here. It also confirms one touch, two touch, and it confirmed a third touch of this support of this channel. And I put the top of the channel here. So it's already two key entry points, EMA and the bottom of this channel. And the third key entry point or third thing was you had to recognize, which I did, that this is a second entry long that's hidden here. So I thought this was actually a pretty good setup, but I wasn't fast enough. By the time I recognized it, it already had moved away. So then I had to let it go. Would have been good enough for a scalp. Breaks down, comes up. I do see a second entry short here, new low here, first entry short, comes up, makes a second entry short, breaks out of this channel going up. However, this second entry short, I wouldn't have wanted to take a trade here just because you're counter trend trading. And right now it's just showing their strength on a push up. So I don't want to be selling on such a strong strength just because I could be wrong. Turns out, the trade was potentially there, and it did complete the test because it broke out and it completed the test of this most recent high. But you could also treat it as a potential fail breakout of this larger trading range, this gray one here. But I saw that, I wasn't sure, and I saw the EMA coming into play. I just didn't want to take the risk because right here, it's about just barely enough for a scalp before you hit the EMA. So I wanted to leave it alone. If you saw this and you decide to take a short here, now you're going to run into the issue of potentially, because this already has a triple test here, potentially a support right here. And again, here you have just barely enough to scalp out. And I didn't want to play those just barely if I could avoid it. Because here, depending on where you kept your stop loss and where your profit target was, you'd still be in this trade being nervous and maybe get out here. And for sure, you might have gotten out here, I would think. Prices continue moving up. I do see a second entry short here, new low here, first entry short. This is a second entry short and it fails. So I thought this was actually a pretty good trade. Unfortunately, I didn't take this trade. It's coming off this support, which has been proven. And I drew it as a trading range. So I saw this as a potential top of the range, or maybe it coincided down here, as well as the more important factor is the support down here, because right here, all these prices don't have to exactly hit this exact line and go back up. And even though it moves down one tick or potentially two ticks, this line is still valid as a support because right around this line, this region of maybe a couple of ticks, there is some buying power coming back in. So this is a new low, first entry short, second entry short, and it looks like it's about to fail because clearly it closed bullish. So I thought this is actually a decent trade. And the signal bar for the short is terrible, but for the failure, it's not too bad. And there was enough room to get to the top. Turns out this trade would have worked, but I wasn't on it. Prices continue moving up. Now it's going strongly upwards. There is technically, if you count it from here, first entry short, second entry short, or if you counted this as the new low as a grouping, you could have counted this as first entry short, second entry short failure, but things were just a little bit congested. It looks like there's two legs up, so I just want to leave it alone. Yeah, I don't want to be taking a short, but I wasn't sure because right now you don't really know what's happening above, so I didn't really want to feel comfortable taking a long either, so I just left it alone. Prices come down. Do have a new high, first entry long technically. You have a second entry long, it bounced off. It's a terrible signal bar though. And I do see this, it's a failed second entry long and a second entry short. So how did I come up with that? So I counted this as one leg down, made one push up, came down, made a second push up. So right now, on the visual, larger scale, you have a first entry long, then it pulls back a second entry long. I also saw this as a new low, first entry short. If it breaks below this candle, it's going to have a second entry short. Right here, your second entry short has been made and your failure has been confirmed. So it's a second entry short, failed second entry long. The one thing I did not like about this is it closed right on the EMA. The EMA is also showing strength, or at least some kind of support. So that made me nervous to either go short, because I would think maybe prices are making one move down, push up, second down, and now I made a second push up, and now it's probably going to fail. But what's giving me pause is the EMA seems like it's being a support. So if you had a strict count, you could also say it's one high here, first entry long, comes down. This is where you get second entry long, and you could say this is a lower high, and potentially it might start failing. But again, the EMA is giving me pause. But here, once it flashes down, if I wanted to enter this trade, I would have put it where the original entry would have been, right up here, right where this tick closed, or with the low of this tick, and not down here, because it made me a little nervous. And even though down here you have more assurance getting filled, you also have a higher chance of getting stopped out. Whereas if I kept my entry here, there's a chance I might not get filled, but it would have been a little bit more safer trade. So if I did put it right here, turns out I would not have gotten trade, and it would have just ran away without me. Prices continue moving down, and again, it's showing support right here, bouncing up. I saw first entry short, second entry short, but it didn't quite make it to the EMA, so I just wanted to leave it alone. Prices just get choppy. It's in this trading range. It breaks out. I saw potentially one leg up. This now is the second leg. It almost completes, but it didn't quite make it. Now it completes the second leg. However, I'm not really sure what I'm looking at now because it's one leg up, pull back, second leg up. There's also a pullback, and it tested a new high. So you'd think its uptrend has played out and it's coming back down. However, there's no good signal bar, no clean setup. And it's getting close to the EMA. So I'm not sure if the EMA is going to hold again or if it's going to break through. So there's nothing to trade here, in my opinion. Prices continue moving down. You do have a new high here, first entry long, second entry long, where you can see it as one leg down, first entry long, pullback, second entry long, and potentially a failure here. But these candles don't look very clean, very convincing to take a short. Prices continue moving. I see a first new low here, first entry short, second entry short. This is a bad signal bar. It's above the EMA. I don't want to go short when it's like that. Comes back down. There was no confirmation setup though. Prices continue moving down. And right now the context looks like it was in a trading range. It broke out and now it's moving back within this gray trading range, getting close to the midline. I'm wondering if it's going to make it back down to the bottom. Prices continue moving, and it was pretty tough kind of sitting through all this and not taking a trade because I just wasn't sure, wasn't feeling it today. I do see a new low here. I also saw this counted as a new high because this is a double top, and then I just reset the count here all the way down. You don't get a first entry long till you get about here. You get a first entry long, breaks above, moves up, comes down, boom. You have a second entry long. Second entry long on a really, really great signal bar. Unfortunately, this signal bar is an inside bar, and it's also below the EMA, which it has been chopping above and below. So there's no clear guidance on if this time it would be prices would move above the EMA or it might get flushed back down. Because if you want to take an entry one tick above, you do not have enough room for even a point scalp. So I saw this, I just thought, okay, well, I'm not 100% sure if there's a second attempt will be made to test this low here because it came down, broke out, tested lows once. Maybe it's going to go up and maybe it comes back down a second time to test these lows. So going long feels a little risky, but there's no setup to go low, go short as well. So I had to wait for some kind of confirmation setup, and I don't get a confirmation setup. However, I do see this failed second entry short. This is actually where I took my first trade. Is from here is a new low, first entry short, comes up, makes a second entry short, and it fails. But it made a double top. It didn't quite fail yet because if the next candle actually opens and stays below this double top and it comes down, then it's actually a confirmed second entry short. However, prices look like they're coming right back up now. So I thought there's a potential trade here, so I waited. I saw this flash up and I thought, okay, definitely my entry would have been right one tick above these two micro double tops or right at the double tops. But this went up and closed, so I said I'm going to look for the next candle. Next candle closed bearish, so it made me pause. I thought, okay, well, this might be coming back down now, actually. And when this one opened, it opened here, and it was chopping around. I dropped my order in as a limit order here, and it actually danced above it for a little while, and then finally picked me up, which I was grateful for. and it moved up. So I was a little bit slower on this trade, but I wanted to be super sure what I was looking at, and I indeed could have missed this trade if it was just, if this candle formed another green candle, I might have missed this trade completely. But I was lucky in this instance that it came back, picked me up, and went right back up. And it turned out if I had a runner, it would have been a pretty good runner all the way up to probably about here. Let's continue chopping. I saw a second entry long here. This is a quadruple top, micro double, well, micro quadruple top. Made a first entry long. I saw this as a potential second entry long. I actually thought this was a decent trade or a possible trade to have taken because it's a good signal bar. It engulfed the previous red bearish bar and also bounced off the EMA. So it came up, first test the EMA, came up, pushed up, came down, tested a second time. So this might be enough strength to try to bounce back up. So taking a trade here I thought would have been a decent trade to take. Turns out it would have worked out very nicely, at least enough for a scalp. Comes up, makes this, I guess, triple test here, or triple top here. As a new high, first entry long, comes down. Here, I saw a potential second entry long forming if the EMA is going to hold. What I didn't like is that it closed below the EMA, and now this is a doji candle. There's so much tug of war going on here. It's hard to know if it's going to push back up above or continue downwards now. And then when this candle formed and closed, I felt definitely the trade was too late because this isn't a good signal bar to go long. It closed up here. Now you're just trying to get out before it hits the top here. There isn't quite that much room for a point scalp, so you'd have to drop it a little bit lower. But even then I don't think the trade is worth it because the setup wasn't even that enticing in the first place. Prices continue moving up, and then this is just kind of going into the close of the day where prices were just rallying like crazy, but there was no good setup. And this is toward the last 10 minutes where I don't want to take a trade just because you only have 10 minutes to resolve. I mean, you could trade into the after hours, but then volume drops and price action slows down. So I definitely just didn't want to take a trade with only 10 minutes left. Then prices just kind of moved all the way into the close. So I saw the trading today. It was kind of interesting. There are a few trades in there that I thought were some good setups, and I only managed to take one setup today. And it was a little late, but I was more happy kind of waiting for the confirmation instead of just jumping right in. So hopefully that was helpful.